សំឡេងមួយខ្លាំងមួយមកបំណាច់ជាស្នេហ៍ស្ទើរតែលេបានចំពោះកល្យានប្រានបងលែងគិតបងត្រូវតស៊ូលុសូនជីវិតមិនឲ្យមានស្និទ្ធរបេងបានទេអូនល្អទាំងអង្គស្រស់គ្មានតបភ្នែកពេញចិត្តអាណែដូចមេឃនឹងខារូបបងស្រឡាញ់ចោះចាញ់ក្តីស្នេហ៍ដូចខែរះពេញចោះចាញ់ពពឆ្ងល់ណាស់ជួនកាលពន្លឆាប់ខឹងតើប្រលឹងអូននៅមិនស្ងៀមរកបងមនុស្សដទៃមិនខ្ចីនឹកភ្នត់ចំពោះពន្លខឹងផងស្នេហ៍ផងទើបតែឥឡូវបងបានដឹងច្បាស់ថាខឹងឬព្រោះសេចក្តីស្នេហ៍ស្នងប្រច័នព្រោះស្នេហ៍បែកខឹងនួនល្អងកុំប្រកាន់បងខឹងព្រោះស្រឡាញ់ជួនកាលពន្លឆាប់ខឹងតើប្រលឹងអូននៅមិនស្ងៀមរកបងមនុស្សដទៃមិនខ្ចីនឹកភ្នត់ចំពោះពន្លខឹងផងស្នេហ៍ផងទើបតែឥឡូវបងបានដឹងច្បាស់ថាខឹងឬព្រោះសេចក្តីស្នេហ៍ស្នងប្រច័នព្រោះស្នេហ៍បែកខឹងនួនល្អងកុំប្រកាន់បងខឹងព្រោះស្រឡាញ់កុំប្រកាន់បងខឹងព្រោះស្រឡាញ់កុំប្រកាន់បងខឹងព្រោះស្រឡាញ់អរគុណច្រើនចៅទូកនេសាទកណ្ដាលអាត្រៀតលើផ្ទៃជលសាក្រោមពន្លឺច័ន្ទថ្លានឹកឃើញសង្សារធ្លាប់ថ្នាក់ថ្នមបីស្នេហ៍យើងស្នេហ៍ស្មងតែម្ដាយអូនគាត់មិនប្រណីព្រោះបងអ្នកនេសាទត្រីបងគ្មានទ្រព្យអ្វីគប់ចិត្តមេបាតឹងទ្រូងស្ទើរបែកបង្ហូរទឹកភ្នែកស្ ស្ដាយរូបសង្សារកម្មកំណាចឬជាថ្ងៃនេះជីវ៉ាចូលរងងាយលេងក្បែរប្រគុំបងខ្ញុំចង់ដៃត្រាតត្រើយអងអោកំពុងឃ្លាំងអើយនេះហើយចងកម្មឲ្យខ្ញុំវេទនាទន្លេសាទឹករីករដូវវស្សាលិចទាំងខ្ទមចូលរីពុំងារអូនប្រត់ឆ្ងាយស្នេហ៍គេបងខំបងទួញយំទ្រូងបងស្ទើរភ្លីបត់បាយខំចង់ដៃស្រីហើយលេងអើយកំណាចໄວម្លេះបងសូមលាស្រីលាទាំងអាឡ័យលាស្នេហ៍បរិសុទ្ធដូចទន្លេសាមុទ្រទឹកប្រៃទឹកសាបចែកដាច់ពីគ្នាស្នេហ៍រឹងវណ្ណៈខ្ញុំខកចិត្តបេះដូងពើផ្សាទ្រាំរស់នៅកំសត់ឯកានេះហើយវាសនាអ្នកនេសាទអើទន្លេសាទឹករីករដូវវស្សាលិចទាំងខ្ទមចូលរីពុំងារអូនប្រត់ឆ្ងាយស្នេហ៍គេបងខំបងទួញយំទ្រូងបងស្ទើរភ្លីបត់បាយខំចង់ដៃស្រីហើយលេងអើយកំណាចໄວម្លេះបងសូមលាស្រីលាទាំងអាឡ័យលាស្នេហ៍បរិសុទ្ធដូចទន្លេសាមុទ្រទឹកប្រៃទឹកសាបចែកដាច់ពីគ្នាស្នេហ៍រឹងវណ្ណៈខ្ញុំខកចិត្តបេះដូងពើផ្សាទ្រាំរស់នៅកំសត់ឯកានេះហើយវាសនាអ្នកនេសាទអើ
No, I think you can say like everyone please.
Good morning, everyone. If I could ask all of you to slowly find your seats and just find a seat where you can see the stage well, settle down, find your partners you want to sit next to, and just have a seat. We'll start in 2 minutes. Thank you.
at German embassy to the Kingdom of Cambodia. Dr. Kunter Ritnatha, Country Director of GIZ Cambodia, Mr. Werner Lange, Cluster Coordinator of GIZ FABRIC. Ai phép bằng Anh không? Yeah. Not 6 o'clock and I need to prepare money. And then I was so nervous, I lost my script. I think I lost it in that. I'll ask you to go to that. And I asked my coach to write down the entrance for everything so we can better eye ourselves. Yeah. Của ấy tên nó tên là Vic gì đấy ha, nhưng mà bên Vic cho nó. Maybe you just say you have something to show. Oh, you can practice when you say this and then to translate. Who's over there? Good morning, everyone. We will start in 2 minutes, so please grab your seat. For MOU? For MOU or for the name page? Hashtag, I think somewhere.
All right, everyone. If I could ask all of you to take a seat. Sinal and me are ready, and I see most of you are too. So we'll get started in just a second.
Yes, good morning. Thank you. stand here or stand here?
You have sound up? It doesn't ring?
No, 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 no.
Yeah. Thank you. I will check that, okay? They said, everyone said the microphone.
Yes. Hello. Test, test. I don't know why Kristen keeps coming. I announced one time already when you were out of the room.
You need to stand. Just say good morning like two.
Good morning, everyone. We will start in 1 minute, so please kindly grab your seat. Chumrip Suor, a very good morning to all our distinguished guests. His Excellency Som Chamnan, Secretary of State of Ministry of Labor and Vocational Training. Dr. Gidon Vanekers, Deputy Head of Development Cooperation at German Embassy to the Kingdom of Cambodia. Dr. Konter Rikmahat, Country Director of GIZ Cambodia. Mr. Werner Lankers, Cluster of Coordinator of GIZ. Mr. Mark Beckman, Project Director of GIZ Fabric Projects. Colleagues and friends, welcome to the 14th Asian Dialogues Conference in the stunning Phnom Penh cities. My name is Sinal, and alongside me is Lisa. We are honored to be your co-moderator for today's event, and we will also guide you through for today's event as well.
Also, a very warm welcome from my side. My name is Lisa Ramershofen, and I am co-moderating with Sinal together. Sinal and me come only from 2 different countries, but today we are lucky enough to have participants, speakers, and the audience from over 28 countries in the room. Plus, we also have, as you can tell from the cameras in the room, our online stream and more countries joining us online. Not only do we have a good variety in terms of the countries who are represented in this room, but also in terms of the stakeholder groups. We have representatives both from government and policy makers to workers and manufacturer representatives, as well as multi-stakeholder initiatives, international organizations, and technical experts. We come together today because we are united by our commitment to sustainability in this sector, and we look forward to spending this day and also the following day with all of you.
Yes, some of you, especially for the manufacturers, have already joined us for a few sessions in the last few days already, but however, there is a number of additional events going on today and the rest of the week. So let's look at today first. After 10 years of fabric work in Bangladesh, Pakistan, Myanmar, Vietnam, China, and Cambodia, we are honored to have you join us for today's conference on advancing sustainability, the need for regional perspective. So before we get started, let me guide you through 2 agendas. We will have 2 open remarks, following by keynote speech, 10 years of fabric, special performance, I don't want to mention what is it now, and coffee breaks, group work, including looking ahead together. Last but not least, we will have fabric videos.
Thank you, Sinal. In the afternoon, some of you will join the factory visits, and on that note, I would like to thank our partners from TAFTAC for organizing that. If you got one of the spots and signed up for the factory visits, kindly meet at the lobby at 1:15, 1:20, just after lunch. Please be reminded that we will only be able to take those who confirmed and signed up. In case you need to double check if you have one of the spots, the email was called factory visit confirmed. So just to double check that. If you're a little bit unsure, you can also find me in the coffee break and I'll double check the list for you.
Yeah, thank you, Lisa, for the information. I think just double check if you haven't signed in or haven't received your name tags yet, please check in with our registration team outside and collect it. And Wi-Fi is available on the table. Also, you will find the QR code where you can go to the website where you also find agenda. Last but not least, we also have the QR code wall displayed outside the room where you can scan and access to all necessary documents related to the industry.
To begin our agenda today, I am pleased to welcome our first speaker on stage, Dr. Gideon Windiker, Deputy Head of Development Cooperation at the German Embassy. Please join us to deliver your welcome remarks.
Excellency Somchanan, Secretary of State for the Ministry of Labor and Vocational Training. Dear representatives from associations of the textile and garment sector, distinguished speakers and guests at today's Asian Dialogues Conference, Chumrip Sur, and a very good morning, a warm welcome to this important conference under the motto 10 years of promoting regional perspectives. It is my great honor and pleasure to address you today on behalf of the German Embassy and the Federal Ministry of Economic Cooperation and Development. I would like to extend a big thank you to the organizers and all participants for your commitment to advancing sustainability in the textile and garment sector, a topic of great significance for all of us. Over the past decade, the German government has been deeply committed to supporting the transition towards greater sustainability in the textile sector and garment sector, in line with Cambodia's garment, footwear, and travel goods sector development strategy. Through the GIZ FABRIC program, we have worked closely with our partners in Asia to create a more sustainable, fair, and resilient textile supply chain. This commitment reflects Germany's broader vision for sustainable development in our partner countries, where the textile industry plays a crucial role in livelihoods, economic growth, and social development. At the same time, the sector is not without challenges. Ensuring fair wages, decent working conditions, addressing climate change, and reducing environmental impact remain pressing issues. These challenges are not limited to a single country. They are global in nature and therefore demand regional and international cooperation. Regional collaboration in Asia is crucial. By promoting capacity building, fostering cooperation, and facilitating cross-border learning among producers, the industry can enhance its sustainability performance, strengthening both its competitiveness and resilience in the region. In addition, by fostering collaboration rather than viewing one another solely as competitors, producers can amplify their collective voice, strengthen their position with buyers, and ensure their concerns are heard more effectively. This shift towards sustainability is further propelled by mandatory legislations, such as Germany's Supply Chain Due Diligence Act, the EU Corporate Sustainability Due Diligence Directive, the Eco-Design Directive, and other sustainability-focused regulations already in place or on the horizon. These frameworks will enhance accountability and transparency across textile supply chains, leveling the playing field for all stakeholders. GIZ Fabric can be proud of its achievements in the sector and the valuable partnerships it has enabled. We will hear more today about its many successful initiatives, such as the STAR Initiative, the Asia Garment Hub, or the Women Empowerment House. These are just a few examples of how Fabric is driving meaningful change in the region. Of course, none of this would have been possible without the close collaboration with our trusted partners, many of whom are present here today. Manufacturers, brands, government representatives, civil society organizations, and workers have all played an instrumental role in this process. Your commitment, expertise, and determination, they make all the difference. Excellency, ladies and gentlemen, as we look to the future, it is clear that the path towards sustainability requires joint action. Only through collective effort can we shape a textile and garment sector that combines economic prospects with social and environmental responsibility. Thank you very much. I wish you all an inspiring and productive conference. Okuntran.
Thank you, Dr. Vanikas. That was an insightful speech. So without further notice, I would like to invite His Excellency Somchamnan, Secretary of State of Ministry of Labor and Vocational Training, to deliver his opening remarks. Please welcome.
Dr. Gideon Vendekers, Deputy Head of Development Cooperation of the Embassy of the Federal Republic of Germany in Cambodia. Dr. Gunther Retzmachers, Country Director of GIZ in Cambodia. Distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the Ministry of Labor and Vocational Training of Cambodia, it is my great pleasure to join you today in this very important ASEAN Dialogue Conference. While I warmly welcome you to Cambodia, I also would like to extend my sincere appreciation to GIZ FABRIC projects as well as TAPTEC and all the partners for jointly organizing and supporting to organize this conference to facilitate the dialogue and collaborations on sustainability, particularly in the garment and footwear sectors, a sector that plays a pivotal role in Cambodia's economy and the broader ASEAN regions. Cambodia garments and footwear industry is a cornerstone of our national economies, contributing to the employment and exports significantly. It provides jobs to approximately 800,000 workers who directly benefit from industry, and over millions workers also indirectly benefit from it. And the majority of whom are women and account for approximately 55% of our total exports. The sector has been a driving force for economic growth, poverty reduction, and social development. However, as the global focus shifts towards sustainability, it is imperative that we embrace responsible and ethical production practice to remain competitive and ensure long-term prosperity. For these reasons, the Royal Government of Cambodia has been proactive in implementing policies and strategies that promote sustainability in the industries. In this regard, the Cambodia Garment, Footwear, and Travel Goods Development Strategy 2022-2027 was put in place, and it is a comprehensive framework designed to support the sector's long-term sustainability through several key initiatives, such as enhancing competitiveness through promoting value-added productions, innovation, and digitalizations. Improving working conditions through strengthening labor rights, workplace safety, and social protections. Promoting environmental sustainability through encouraging the adoption of green technologies, renewable energies, and responsible waste management. Promoting skill development through investing in workforce training and development, and strengthening supply chain transparency through enforcing responsible sourcing and improving traceability to ensure ethical and sustainable production practice throughout the supply chains. Moreover, the Ministry of Labor and Vocational Training has been committed to working hands in hand with all stakeholders, including GIZ Fabric projects, to support and strengthen Cambodia's textile and garment industries. Through this collaboration, we have enabled the critical advancement in environmental and resource management, capacity building for factories, and the promotion of fair and responsible production practice. These efforts are essential for ensuring that Cambodia remains a key player in sustainable manufacturing within the regions. More importantly, Cambodia has actively participated in regional cooperation efforts, including, but not limited to, the STAR Network and Sustainable Term of Trade Initiatives, STTI. This platform has provided invaluable opportunity for our industry to engage with international partners, share best practice, and develop solutions that benefit both workers and businesses. Distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, while garment and footwear sector has been a source of economic empowerment of many countries in Asia, it also faces pressing sustainability challenges. These include environmental concerns such as high water consumption, excessive energy use, and waste management, alongside with social issues such as fair wage, workplace safety, and labor rights. However, within these challenges lie opportunities. Sustainable practices such as circular economy approaches, renewable energy adoption, and responsible sourcing of materials can transform the industry into a model of resilience and innovations. By leveraging regional cooperation and knowledge sharing through partnership among governments, industry, stakeholders, and development partners, we can be optimistically sure that we will be able to collectively address this issue and implement scalable solutions for our industries. In these connections, I would like to extend my gratitude to regional GIZ Fabric projects for continuing to organize today's regional conference to serve as a bridge between governments, industry, stakeholders, and regional networks to engage in meaningful dialogue in order to foster actions towards a more sustainable garment and textile sector for the past decades. Unfortunately, these projects come to an end very soon. However, today's conference should not be the celebration of the end of the projects. It should be served as the opportunity for us to discuss further on action to be taken. Let today's dialogue be a catalyst for more actions, not the final action due to the end of the GIZ Fabric projects. Last but not least, I sincerely wish you a very fruitful discussion today and enjoy your stay in Phnom Penh, the beautiful and peaceful capital city of Cambodia. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Your Excellency, for your valuable speech. So next, we are delighted to welcome our keynote speaker, Mr. Peter McAllister, expert for human rights, due diligence, and responsible business development. He will share insight into the current landscape and the future direction of sustainability in our industry. Please welcome.
Good morning, everybody. Excellency and distinguished participants, thank you for the opportunity to contribute to this important dialogue on sustainability in the apparel and textile sector and the vital need for regional perspectives. A particular thank you to GIZ and the Fabric team who have made my contribution and participation possible. When I was invited to prepare this talk, I was really quite excited. But as I looked more into it, I became quite daunted by trying to squeeze a number of useful comments in 20 minutes, particularly given the amount of expertise and experience gathered here in this room. So please forgive me in advance for any errors I make or for not fully understanding all aspects of the sector. I was asked to be constructively provocative, so I hope my observations are of interest and may help the conversation over the next 2 days. As has already been said, if you look back over time, this industry has been at the forefront of driving industrialization in some countries, thereby contributing to macroeconomic growth. This has provided income for poor families, community investment, and indeed has supported the aspirations of millions who can put their hard-earned money to the use that they choose. But at the same time, as has already been said, the industry is a big user of energy, of clean water, and of other natural resources. And with its associated logistics, produces a significant carbon footprint. Looking back over the last 10 years, there's been noticeable improvements in production technology. The use of robots and automation has grown, 3D printing is now established, new fabrics including smart fabrics, some made from recycled materials, new processes such as waterless dyeing, all to a lesser or greater extent are being employed throughout the industry. In parallel, digitized logistics and inventory, the use of blockchain, and more recently AI, are all being employed to drive efficiency. Because of concerns around climate change, there has been a nascent move to explore product circularity, ensuring less waste and lowering the impact on the planet. We've also seen significant changes in the last 10 years in terms of purpose-built factories. They have greater energy efficiency, lower water use, and due to initiatives like the Accord, much better fire and building safety records. Over the last 10 years, consumer behavior has changed at a faster rate than ever, not just in terms of fashion trends, which are being turbocharged by influence on social media, but also through how they shop. All these changes have created space for and inspired new business models, some of which break with the traditional ways of doing things. For example, the fashion cycle has shortened and choice has exploded. I recently read a report that said, whereas someone like H&M produces something like 25,000 new items a year, new styles, Shein produces 1.3 million different styles in a year. Some of these new models are also raising significant concerns. They too often ignore the lessons learned around waste, climate change, labor rights, and are typically not involved in fora like these. Sadly, some criticisms of the sector over the last 10 years endure. There has been continued price pressure down the supply chain, even when the costs of raw materials, the cost of energy, and logistics have all risen. This creates significant pressure on supplier margins. One of the results is pressure on wages and competition across the sector based on wage rates in different countries. In too many places, wages have not only been below what might be called a living wage, but even where there has been an uplift, wage rates are eroded by inflation, with many workers having to work overtime to make ends meet. Too many women in the industry have felt vulnerable, and in the worst case, the threat of sexual harassment has been too common but underreported. Too many workers in the sector have not been properly represented in their place of work and have not been able to speak up on the issues that matter to them. Trade unions that might represent them have often been frustrated in their attempts to organize workers, to gain access to the workplace, and collectively represent workers' concerns. And too many supply chain relationships have been transactional rather than partnerships. The response of some brands to COVID acutely demonstrated this. Of course, the sector does not exist in isolation. In the last 10 years, the trading environment has been impacted by COVID, by conflict, which affects some production countries directly, and impacts the logistics for many others. This raises both risk and cost in the sector. In the past, there has been the targeted use of trade preferences to promote economic integration and growth. However, in the last 10 years, there's been a trend moving away from free trade, which has been accelerated since 20th of January this year. The Economist last week raised concerns about mass retrenchment in the industry, in Indonesia, for example, due to changing trade patterns in the region, in part driven by trade barriers elsewhere. Last but not least, over the last 10 years, international norms and standards, as well as international bodies that were established to promote and act as guardians over free trade and rights at work, have come under considerable pressure. No one talks about the global village anymore. Looking at the way forward, I can't begin to do justice to all the various elements of the sector, so I'm going to concentrate on three key areas: the context, and especially the role of regulation; the buyer-supplier relationship and the importance of national and regional perspectives; and workers, and in particular, their ability to influence conditions at work. In terms of context, I'm sure any brand or any supplier can tell you there's been a proliferation of voluntary standards and initiatives. If you look at each one individually, there is typically merit in what they're trying to achieve, and they often bring new ideas and new perspectives. But collectively, this is a very confusing environment to operate in. There is little or no coordination, and too often competition, both among the initiatives themselves and then through the supply chain as different brands or different countries adopt different initiatives. And it's not obvious to me that this is the best way to focus the attention of supply chain partners or to tackle some of the biggest challenges in the sector. In part, due to trade liberalization and a lack of effective checks and balances, the risk remains that production countries are set against each other in a continued international race. International competition sometimes inspires genuine efficiency and productivity gains, and the uptake of new technologies, all of which can have a positive impact for the industry. But too often it creates a race to the bottom, which risks lowering standards, creating pressure on wages, and rewarding those who find corners to cut. If that was not enough for producers and indeed for established brands, the changes in the high street, the move from fast fashion to ultra-fast fashion, and the hidden costs of online shopping are all throwing up significant challenges for the traditional ways that the sector has worked. This has an impact on efforts to drive improvements in social and environmental standards. In a very competitive sector, some emerging business models have limited or no transparency or accountability. Of course, it isn't just about brands, suppliers, and civil society. The role of governments, both in production and consumer countries, what they do and don't do, is very important context for the industry. With some exceptions, most production and consumer countries have signed up to international conventions on climate change, human rights, responsible business practices, and of course the Sustainable Development Goals. Many have integrated the concepts into international law. However, at one end of the supply chain, governments struggle to hold multinational corporations to account with their impact across the globe. At the other end, weak political systems, a lack of capacity, and concerns about national competitiveness means that international standards and even national laws are not always rigorously applied. Too often the absence, or in extreme cases, the failure of governance, creates a vacuum which industry is being asked to fill. Whatever initiatives we have or asks that we make of business, they cannot and should not replace good, effective government policy and action. My concern for the future here is that we will continue to see pressure on countries to compete with each other, typically on price, which translates into pressure on standards, accountability, and transparency. This is in part, I believe, why there has been a significant call, especially amongst European consumer markets, for national laws based on UN guiding principles. It's important to recall that the first pillar of this international instrument is about the important roles that governments play in protecting their citizens and holding business to account within their jurisdiction. This is an important context for responsible business. In terms of the buyer and supplier relationship, although this has changed somewhat, there is still largely an asymmetric power relationship between buyers and suppliers. This is particularly notable for big brands and big retailers who wield significant purchasing power. Many smaller brands succeed by developing more constructive relationships, possibly through necessity or because of the value that that delivers. While we are seeing an emergence of bigger supplier groups who are more confident and able to choose who they supply to, for too many suppliers, securing business to keep the factory floor busy and the business afloat is still their overriding priority. This buyer-supplier relationship is reflected in contract terms, which in most cases are dictated by the buyer. The emergence of the Standard Contract Initiative is an interesting innovation which may help in this regard over time. Not only are contracts typically dictated by buyers, but the compliance approach to support decent working standards is also typically defined by the buyer or some external third party and does not take into account regional or national perspectives, the realities of the supply chain and how it functions. It is often the audit process that comes in for criticism, and some of that may be justified. However, I would argue that it's the underlying imposition of compliance that is the larger problem. With some exceptions, too many buyers are not interested in the reality faced by their supplier or in finding solutions together, especially in the field of decent work and human rights. In reality, commercial buyers are too often looking for a tick in the box to allow them to get on and meet the demands placed on them around delivery times, quality, and price point. However, the reality is that for the sector overall, suppliers and buyers are interdependent, and to tackle the bigger challenges in the sector will require effective collaboration. Let's consider the role of MSIs, NGOs, and other initiatives that have grown up around the sector. In the spirit of transparency, I should be clear that for the last 14 years, I worked with the Ethical Trading Initiative, an MSI that's worked in this sector, among others. Too often, initiatives, MSIs, and NGOs do not fully understand the realities of the supply chain, how it works commercially, and the different pressures within these relationships. On the other hand, part of their worth is having a clear sense of their values based on international norms, rather than just being business services. Values-based initiatives do have a role to play. If the industry is honest with itself, it is all too often NGOs, MSIs, trade unions, and campaigners who have drawn the industry's attention to critical issues that need addressing. While there are rightly concerns about how far voluntary initiatives can go, there are plenty of examples where creating an environment for trust and dialogue can foster change. ETI's report on sourcing from Myanmar while in civil conflict might be a good example, or the production of the Common Framework for Purchasing Practices led by Fair Wear Foundation is another. As mentioned earlier, the Standard Contract Initiative is something which may prove very fruitful in the future. And of course, the work of Fabric itself to improve production conditions and reduce the environmental impact has been really valuable. However, it's also true to say that voluntary initiatives tend to attract those who are willing and those who are trying to drive improved standards. This is inevitably a small subset of the sector at large. They also have limitations when those they work with decline to take their advice, do not adopt good practice, or fail to respond to credible allegations. This is the reason why we've seen the emergence of initiatives in the sector that have mechanisms for accountability based on legally binding agreements. The most obvious one is the Accord, which I'm sure you all know emerged out of the tragedy of Rana Plaza. For those close to the Accord, they can tell you that the many initiatives predating Rana Plaza had failed to engage the industry meaningfully on fire and building safety. Sadly, it took the tragedy of Rana Plaza to bring the Accord into play. Other initiatives like Better Work and Better Factories Cambodia have unique roots, and while not legally binding, have well-established systems and processes for progress and accountability. They can point to evidence of their impact and the benefits that they bring to business and workers in the sector. The problem I mentioned earlier is the proliferation of initiatives, the lack of coordination between them, and too often competition to attract buyers' attention or work with key suppliers. There is little or no accountability for this mix of initiatives, and there is a need for an honest conversation on how to improve the situation to be able to realize the potential that they offer. I imagine that technology in all its forms, new materials, life cycle products, the use of blockchain, the emergence of AI, are already having significant impacts along the value chain. I would like to, however, express a concern. There is a real risk that these innovations may entrench the existing power dynamics at the expense of suppliers, and in particular of workers. While we should not and cannot stop the march of technology, ensuring that all in the value chain benefit is an important conversation that needs further attention. Building on the earlier mention of legislation, I'm sure everybody in the room is aware of increasing tendency to mandate human rights due diligence, based on UN guiding principles and OECD guidelines. We already have laws to this end in Norway, in Germany, in France, and last year the EU directive was aimed at member states requiring them to establish regulation in each country. To some, this feels more like requirements driven from the global north that suppliers in the global south have to comply with. And indeed, some buyers seem to be approaching it in that way. However, if HRDD is properly implemented, the onus is on buyers, not just in this sector, but lead firms in all industry sectors, to understand and demonstrate that they are conducting human rights due diligence in relation to their business and, of course, their supply chains. Unlike a compliance approach, the intention is not to prove the absence of something, in this case human rights and climate risk, but to demonstrate that companies are taking steps to understand the risk associated with their business and their business practices, and to take mitigation actions to reduce harm. One important aspect of the legislation coming out of Europe is that there is a requirement for lead firms in supply chains to look at how they may be causing or contributing to risk or indeed actual harm. This brings a focus on the actions of buyers, such as their purchasing practices and unilateral contract clauses, or their responsible withdrawal, and the need for buyers to consider their own actions and not just the actions of suppliers. It is still too early to see whether HRDD legislation and initiatives can really help the sector rather than be another set of hoops for the industry to jump through. But I would urge those in the region to consider how this might be an opportunity to evolve the conversation among themselves and with their buyers. Worker engagement and agency. Let me first explain what I mean by agency. Too often in the past, workers have been considered a factor of production and a replaceable resource. Agency means not only a worker being listened to and heard, but their concerns are acted on, and they are a participant in any change that affects them. Very few initiatives go that far. In essence, there is a continuum for workers that can treat them as recipients, informants, actors, or lastly, agents of change. Too many initiatives treat workers as recipients, if you like, project beneficiaries, or informants through worker voice, but not as meaningful actors or agents of change. Of course, there is a very well-established mechanism where workers can genuinely be represented and exercise agency, and that's through the trade union movement. The mechanisms inherent in the union movement means that workers don't only have a voice within their union, but actually inform the mandate for their union leaders. Yet union penetration across the industry in most countries remains very low. It is unlikely that few workers want to be represented by unions and have them argue for higher wages, or represent them in grievances, or act collectively on their behalf. It is much more likely that barriers are put in the way of unions to reach workers, to explain the role they can play, to effectively organize workers, and then to represent them with their employers. There are no perfect organizations in any human endeavor, and trade unions are not without their limitations or challenges, just like employers. But if the stance taken by most in industry is that unions are a problem to be avoided, we will continue to have confrontational and unproductive relationships in the sector. Surely it is better that relationships are built on a recognition that workers, trade unions, and industry have common cause, even if negotiations at times will be tense. Surely we want employers to be successful and to share that success with their workforce. The fast-moving nature of the sector, especially on the fashion side of the industry, is at odds with the patient investment needed to understand and develop the industrial culture and workplace practices that are needed. It is difficult for suppliers to think long-term and make the investments that many of them would like in this environment when contracts are short, lead times are pressing, and buyers typically think in terms of weeks and months rather than years. I mentioned earlier the emergence of a variety of different technologies, many of which offer exciting possibilities in the sector. However, how often are workers or their representatives consulted on how this technology will be used? They should be engaged in making sure technology doesn't only drive profitability and efficiency, which are laudable objectives, but also enhances the workplace. There is a real risk that by applying technology without involving workers, this may just exacerbate tensions and stresses, rather than ensure the most effective uptake of the technology itself and a share in the benefits that this can bring for workers. Worker agency, therefore, is key to meaningful engagement. I will express a concern about the proliferation of worker voice apps and worker voice initiatives that are essentially trying to draw up data from workers to be made available for buyers and suppliers. While there can be a place for this, I would argue that this is not meaningful engagement, and it does not promote the sort of productive dialogue that underpins mature industrial relations. Put simply, this approach treats workers yet again as sources of information and not partners in their own right, with a stake in the future of the business and the sector. I said at the outset that I'm sure I've not done justice to this topic. I may have missed out vital points, and my reflections may miss the mark. Please don't hesitate to challenge me over coffee and over lunch. But here are my concluding thoughts. Both because of the turbulent environment and because of the big challenges facing the sector, there is a greater need than ever for effective collaboration, partnerships, and long-term engagement, including sharing of the value along the value chain. Furthermore, the type of engagement, the type of partnerships, and the type of collaboration must involve fully engaged and confident national and regional perspectives, and not just come, as in the past, from the global north. Initiatives like the STTI, focused on creating fairer purchasing practices, and the STAR network of producer associations are good places to start. Even with automation, robotics, new technologies, 3D printing, and so forth, this industry still depends on the hard work of millions of workers. Yet there remain too many questions about how workers are treated, the hours they work, how they are paid, and for women in particular, how vulnerable they feel. Regulation may help to an extent, but my own opinion is that without meaningful agency and without meaningful engagement, and without workers being properly represented and valued, the sector will continue to be dogged by accusations of unfair treatment. The current reality is that there are many forces pushing back against the progress made and trying to return us to a winner-takes-all model. In a multipolar world, the voices of countries such as India, Brazil, or South Africa and China are already being heard, and I hope that the voices of many other countries will be louder as they seek to attract the benefits of the global economy. to drive economic change and improvement for their workers and communities in line with the SDGs. The local, national, and regional perspective is vitally important for genuine sustainable change. It's a hard time to be an optimist, but I believe that events like this one can encourage and support the sort of dialogue and collaboration that is needed. Not only to ensure that this industry thrives and makes a significant contribution to the Sustainable Development Goals, but due to the level of scrutiny it attracts, the sector has the potential to offer other sectors lessons on how responsible business can really be a force for good. Thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you so much, Peter. I remember in the early parts of your input, you were talking about how you were aiming to be thoughtful and provoking, and I think that you have achieved very well. And I think that ambiguity that you were mentioning, both for what you were aiming for with your speech, but is also something that we find in discussion quite a lot. I liked a lot that you didn't shy away from conversations around the business models, and that, you know, the whole sustainability doesn't just happen out of the goodness of our hearts, but it has to happen at the core source of business. And how you mentioned how we need to move away from the very transactional and lacking partnership kind of approach that kind of limit us in a lot of the topics that we are working on. I also really appreciate, and I think that resonated with many of the different groups in the room when you were talking about agency. I think there's a number of groups who feel like that agency hasn't always been sort of appreciated, despite the fact that it is there. We will also recap a couple of those points in the group work that we will do after the coffee break. So if for individual of those topics, we will talk about after the group work, and then either you can find Peter in the coffee break or potentially discuss that in a group among yourselves during the group work later. Next up, I would like to invite our project director, Mark Beckmann, to the stage, as he will share the insights into the journey of our fabric project for the last 10 years. Welcome, thank you.
Yes, good morning, everyone. I will not be on the stage, I will be with you downstairs here. It's a pleasure to welcome all of you to our regional conference on behalf of GIZ Fabric. So this is a really big week for us. We have more than 12 events, more than 250 participants, as we heard, from 28 countries. Thanks to all of you for being here and participating in this. It really means a lot to us, and I think you all will all have very valuable contributions. 1 decade is, of course, a really long time. This is working. 10 years, a lot of things happen in 10 years. A lot of changes happen in 10 years. There are some changes that we can control, others that we do not control. Over the past years, and thank you, Peter, for your keynote. I could have listened to that for hours. It was really interesting. Over the past 10 years, the industry has transformed, technologies have evolved, and the way we work has shifted in ways that we never would have imagined. So let's take a moment to reflect on just how much can change in a decade, and I want to get you moving a little bit. So if any of these statements, of the following statements apply to you, if you can say yes to these statements, then please get up. So who has been in the textile sector for at least 10 years? Please get up. Get up. So you see, we really have a wealth of experience from the sector here in the room. You may sit down again, thank you. Who had a completely different job 10 years ago? Irrespective of in the textile sector or not, who had a completely different job? Oh, not so many. I would have expected more. Thank you, thank you. Who had never even set foot in a textile factory 10 years ago? Who had never been in a factory 10 years ago? That's also not too many, thank you. And finally, who had a very different hairstyle 10 years ago? Anybody? Please get up. Yeah. Thank you very much. I think it's kind of like as much continuity in terms of job changes and hairstyles. Thanks very much. So as part of the preparation for this event, we also had a look into our fabric photo archive, and we found some historical snapshots. Some of our German colleagues might remember our former Minister for Development Cooperation, Gerd Müller. And you might also know that the Rana Plaza incident in Bangladesh was really a catalyst for the further engagement of German development cooperation in the textile sector. So this is Minister Müller maybe signing one of the first project agreements in Bangladesh, maybe even the agreement covering fabric. This is probably the first photo of a fabric team ever, maybe the first regional workshop on planning fabric, and we have actually one person here in the room who is still with us, Werner Lange, the cluster coordinator from Bangladesh. So thank you, Werner, for being on this journey with fabric for all of this time. And this is the first producer roundtable that we organized as part of the regional project. The colleagues from Bangladesh might remember Farooq Hassan, who was the former head of BGMEA. And I think you also see Kim Pitchta here. Kim, is he here in the room? Yes. So maybe you remember this one of the first roundtables, one of the first opportunities of bringing producers from the region together. So let's take a short moment to remind ourselves why fabric was started. Already 10 years ago, there were numerous initiatives that aimed to steer the textile industry towards a more sustainable future. The textile and garment sector has long been one of the global sectors, receiving a lot of attention, not only for business, but also for social and later environmental concerns. And this, of course, goes way back into history. There's a long legacy of battles to make the industry better. The example shown here is from the New York Shirtwaist Strike of 1909, also known as the Uprising of the 20,000, which was a labor strike primarily involving Jewish women working in the New York shirtwaist factories. So we here look at 10 years of implementing this regional project, but of course, the textile and garment sector has this very long history of fighting for labor rights and improving the benefits for people, which is partly what makes this sector so fascinating in my view. There's this long tradition of people and organizations really trying to improve the sector, also in the region, and it was one of the objectives of Fabric to bring them together. The starting point for Fabric was rooted in the belief that producer countries and producers themselves have invaluable knowledge and experience to address the industry's sustainability challenges, and that there are actually a lot of solutions in the region, but that they're often not shared and accessible. Promoting knowledge sharing in the region is a key focus for Fabric. There was a need for stronger involvement of producers in shaping the agenda. The situation of producers is often not heard and considered in the global discussion about sustainability. Amplifying the voice of producers was one of the key motivations for Fabric, because they have a key role in shaping the industry of the future. And finally, of course, a key motivation for German development cooperation overall was the improvement of the situation of workers. So advocacy for the situation of workers was another key objective of Fabric. And in all of these three areas, we achieved important results. We succeeded in setting up the first and only producer network in the region, the STAR network, representing $400 billion in export value. This is half of the global exports. The STAR network has succeeded in bringing producers together on important questions like how to promote renewable energy and how to reduce the burden of the proliferation of audits. Within the network, producer representatives from different countries who are normally competitors can freely share information about challenges and possible solutions. With our training, advisory, and awareness-raising activities, we reached more than 200,000 workers in the region. One of the examples is our outreach campaigns to workers in the early days of the pandemic, where we informed workers about the virus and how to protect themselves. The Asia Garment Hub, the climate action training, and for example, the smartphone labor law app were established as important sources of know-how for many stakeholders. The app was introduced in Cambodia and has now more than 30,000 users. And this is another example of how we learn from the region, because we learned from experiences of a similar app in Myanmar. Changes at manufacturing level are key for a sustainable future of the industry. At the same time, manufacturers are the weaker part of the supply chain. Few very powerful brands choose from thousands of suppliers, often based on lowest price. But when manufacturers are put under too much economic pressure, there's too little scope for raising wages or investing in environmental performance. But in the international discussion and in the public, the situation of manufacturers is often not considered. The pandemic, when so many buyers retreated from contracts without compensation, really highlighted the power imbalances in the supply chain, providing an opportunity to shed light on the topic of purchasing practices as a whole. Recognizing the value of amplified voices, the STAR associations partnered with the International Apparel Federation to launch the Sustainable Terms of Trade Initiative, or STTI. STTI engaged in advocacy for responsible purchasing practices. 4 years later, STTI has expanded beyond the region, demonstrating the power of a unified voice. And I think some here in the room were at the OECD forum on due diligence in the garment sector, and I was very proud to see that together with IAF, STTI has established a roundtable with OECD on policies around purchasing practices. I think that's a great achievement, and that originates here. Out of supplier meetups that were organized by Fabric, the Fashion Producer Collective developed a producer-led platform driving sustainability-focused projects in the textile sector, and we will later hear more about their work. So in summary, while 10 years ago there were no regionally coordinated positions of producers, today we have a widespread recognition of the need to establish a dialogue with producers. STAR and STTI as unique platforms to facilitate this, an ongoing policy exchange between producers and other stakeholders, as for example supported by the OECD, and a vibrant community of producers exchanging and coordinating. We partnered with the ILO to launch the Asia Garment Hub, the first of its kind, and recognizing the need for a centralized knowledge platform. So the Asia Garment Hub now makes more than 900 knowledge resources available and receives more than 35,000 clicks per year. It's the central knowledge platform for all materials related to sustainability in Asia. Through the web-based training course Climate Action Trainings, we support the decarbonization agenda of the sector. By the end of 2024, more than 20,000 users have enrolled in the online climate action trainings. Since its launch, many brands have integrated this training into their supplier engagement strategies. In Vietnam, 4 brands, New Balance, Puma, VF, and Hugo Boss, have joined forces to train 60 of their suppliers at their own expense. Additionally, other brands have jointly financed the translation of the climate action training into Italian and Turkish language. And of course, the voices of workers are equally essential. Through our regional work, we actively promoted the replication of successful models between the countries in the region. One approach that has been successfully replicated in many countries are the women's houses or cafes, safe spaces for workers to come together and share knowledge and get access to advocacy. And if any of you have met our passionate and engaged WE House manager, Shansotea, you will not be surprised that the WE House here in Cambodia is, of course, continuously expanding its services. So while it's true that Fabric will end later this year, a number of GIZ textile projects in Asia and from headquarters, and we have a lot of colleagues working on this here, will stay and continue to working on these issues. So please know that your contributions during the discussions in the framework of this conference will be very valuable input for future GIZ approaches. Today we will also discuss the future of the activities and networks initiated by Fabric. But first we would like to hear from two of our partners and colleagues. So Shansotea from the WE House, would you give a short input on how the WE House will continue in the future?
Thank you so much, Mark. Greetings, everyone. Thank you. I am Shansotea, the WE House manager here in Cambodia. The WE House was established in 2021 with the replication from the Women's Center in Myanmar based on the success of the center there. So after establishing the WE House in Cambodia in 2021, we could see that the needs of safe space for workers where they can access the resource to be empowered and advocate for their rights. And we also received the increasing of the support from workers. So our service offer of the women empowerment here, we will expand our service offer to reach even more workers. For example, like we are planning to do more community events so that we can reach more workers. And we also leverage the digital technology also. And under the WE House program, we also have a unique approach on the capacity building for the women union leaders. So it is a program that, to ensure that the knowledge sharing among the workers is still there, even though that our project, GIZ Fabric regional project is not here anymore, but the knowledge sharing among the workers still there. And we also recognize the crucial role of the women representation in the sector. So with the capacity building program for the women union leader, we believe that they better represent the women's voice in Cambodia textile sector as well. However, we are committed to keeping the momentum going, and we will keep pushing for change. And while the regional GIZ Fabric project is wrapping up, GIZ is still very much involved in the region through the bilateral projects in the countries, making sure that our impactful work continue, and we will see the workers' situation in the sector improve as well. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, Shansotea. And I would also like to call on our long-standing partner, Matthijs, from the International Apparel Federation, to say a few words about, in this case, the future of the STTI initiative.
Thank you very much, Mark. My name is Matthijs Grité. I'm Secretary General of the International Apparel Federation, the IF, a global federation with industry associations as its core members and large manufacturing groups as well, and based in Holland. Before I say anything else, I would like to extend my sincere thanks to the GIZ Fabric team for the fantastic collaboration that we have had and that we will continue to have, not maybe in GIZ Fabric, but in other ways. We heard in Mark's presentation just now, and also a reference in Peter McAllister's presentation about the STTI, the Sustainable Terms of Trade Initiative. This was a collaboration of the STAR Network and the IF, and we found when we started that our memberships hardly overlapped, which meant we could connect the two groups and achieve at one go a very, very large representation of manufacturers' voices. It was set up 4 years ago during the crisis in purchasing practices during the COVID pandemic, And we were advocating for better purchasing practices, but maybe more important, we were advocating for a seat around the table for manufacturers to work on purchasing practices. And it even looking back now, it was very ironic to realize that the ultimate topic that concerns manufacturers, namely the purchasing practices that they undergo, were not really an issue where solutions were co-designed with manufacturers. And I think together with GIZ, we really have been able to change that. There's a lot of work to be done. It's still a very pressing concern in this sector. Some very tough issues to deal with. And even with GIZ Fabric coming to an end, IF will continue this initiative that was really started with the full support of GIZ. So we're going to be very committed to continuing the STTI as IF, but not only as IF. We heard the collaboration is key, and so it is. So it's a collaboration with the STAR Network, with the Fashion Producer Collective, with FTEX, and other producer groups. That's the only way it works. It's the only way the collaboration, how the manufacturer's voice is fully amplified to the level that we can achieve the change that we want. You'll hear more about STTI, I think, later today. But thanks again for the opportunity.
Thank you very much, Matthijs, and also thank you for the long years of partnership with GIZ Fabric. So, are we there yet after 10 years? Do we see this ideal picture of a garment factory powered by solar and wind, with great working conditions and surrounded by green, lush nature, already appearing in reality? So obviously not. Many of us working in the textile and garment sector have realized that change does not happen quickly. Some even question whether the sector is moving in the right direction. So we are far from an ideal state because of a number of challenges persist. However, we believe that with amplified voices, knowledge sharing and advocacy, we can make significant strides. So in the end, a big thumbs up from the Fabric team and a very big thank you to all partners and supporters. We look forward to stay with you, maybe in different functions and roles in this journey to a different and better garment and textile sector in the future. Thank you all.
Hello. Okay. Wow, thank you, Mark. It was very insightful presentation. And I can say that I can witness that Fabric Project has done a lot of work for the 10 years of project implementation. So next, we will also have a special performance from Meteor. So please welcome the beautiful team on stage and enjoy the show.
Okay, so good morning, everyone. My name is Vatai. I'm Assistant Manager of Meteor Women Drummers. I hope you all are doing very well. Yes, so before the show start, I would like to introduce about my team a bit. So Meteor is the first group of women drummer in Cambodia. The reflections of performing is the art of storytelling of how we struggle with the society that think that women cannot play these heavy drums. So we use this music instrument as a way to change and show the potential as a woman in society and artistic. So are you ready to watch our amazing performance? Thank you. So welcome, Meteor Women Drummer.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining us here today. I can certainly feel the energy in the room, and I'm very sure that everyone here enjoyed it. I think that if all of us in the industry would be able to apply this level of coordination, optimism, and enthusiasm and energy at work, we should have even solved the challenges that Peter mentioned early in the beginning. So thank you so much, and one more random applause. Well, that was certainly a level of energy I'm aspiring to for the rest of the day. That was really good. I missed the pre-performance when we tried this out on stage, so I was just as surprised as all of you today. But very excited about going forward with this energizer just in the middle of the day. We have one more smaller surprise, not to this magnitude, and of a different kind for you guys in store. But this one I probably need to give you a little bit of background on. We've been working on post-industrial waste for roughly 2 years, and in the 2 years that Fabric has been working on it, there were a couple of the highlights in that journey that we took with the partners in the sector, and one was that for the multi-stakeholder initiatives and multi-stakeholder efforts that we supported in textile to textile recycling, we had partners that joined us from TAFTEC, factories, the brands, recyclers, but also waste handlers. In addition, we initiated a couple of regional discussions on this topic, and on the regional level, we're also joined by partners such as GFA to join us in the Global Circular Fashion Forum. If you want to read a little bit more about these resources or any of the other resources that are mentioned during Mark's input, what Matthias mentioned, Jansotea, and everyone else, there's a QR code wall outside where instead of, doing a lot of physical printed handouts, you guys can scan and download all the resources. And on the topic of circularity, that includes our work on upstream circular playbook and some studies to read up on this. We also have a more practical, so to say, approach in this, which is in a collaboration with Remade and iApparel. We did a design competition to upcycle post-industrial waste. And through that, there were 7 designers who developed prototypes. And we brought some of them today for you guys to have a look at. So we would like to invite the participants to have a look outside the room where my colleague Bun Long will be and have a look at the business cards that are made from textile waste. And we would also like to invite our speakers here today to come find us here over there, where we have some bags, ties, phone wallets, etc. as gifts for audience and speakers throughout the day. We also have a session on circularity tomorrow morning at 11 a.m. As Mark mentioned, we have 12 events this week, so we're only halfway through. There's more to come tomorrow, including the circular conversation around. Otherwise, if you have questions on the specific, physical prototyping work, my colleague Christine is sitting over here, and she can also give you some more further information.
Okay, thank you, Lisa. So before we proceed with our agenda, I invite everyone to have a coffee break for 20 minutes. And we have refreshment, including coffee and snacks, just available outside the room. And we will come back to the room at 10:50. Yes, so please be on time. That we have a lot of things to show you, so please enjoy your coffees. Yes.
We'll see you in 20 minutes. Thank you.
ជួយសួរបាទខ្ញុំបានឈ្មោះខុនពីរំជា Supervisor ផ្នែកតុកាសម្រាប់ផ្នែកតុការបស់ខ្ញុំនៅពេលដែលខ្ញុំចាប់ដើមនៅផ្នែកតុកាអាសិនគឺខ្ញុំនៅទទួលបាននៅពីកដាត់ពីខាងផ្នែកឃ្លាំងដើម្បីយកប្រកាសមុនប្រកាសខ្ញុំទៅយកកដាត់ហ្នឹងយកមកពលាបាទចំណាប់អារម្មណ៍របស់ខ្ញុំពាក់ព័ន្ធទៅនឹងកាកសំណល់យើងអាចកែច្នៃគឺជាសម្ភារៈផ្សេងៗទី1ទី2គឺយើងអាចកាត់បន្ថយបរិស្ថានមួយផ្នែកធំ
So excited that you offer this kind of business of drawing designers. Thank you for participating in this challenge. It's something really unique that we wanted to try.
So I was trying to think of like ways that I could repurpose the fabric scraps, because those are the hardest materials to repurpose from bigger pieces, and like twisting it and then weaving it into a drink cooler.
ជំរាបសួរបាទខ្ញុំបានឈ្មោះខុនពីរំជា Supervisor ផ្នែកតុកាត់សម្រាប់ផ្នែកតុកាត់របស់ខ្ញុំនៅពេលដែលខ្ញុំចាប់ដើមនៅផ្នែកតុកាត់អាសិនគឺខ្ញុំនៅទទួលបាននៅពីកដាត់ពីខាងផ្នែកឃ្លាំងដើម្បីយកប្រកាសមុនប្រកាសខ្ញុំទៅយកប្រកាសហ្នឹងយកមកពលាបាទចំណាប់អារម្មណ៍របស់ខ្ញុំពាក់ព័ន្ធទៅនឹងកាកសំណល់យើងអាចកែច្នៃគឺជាសម្ភារៈផ្សេងៗទី1ទី2គឺយើងអាចកាត់បន្ថយបរិស្ថានមួយផ្នែកធំ
I'm so excited that you all participated in this of our designers. Thank you for participating in this challenge. It's something really unique that we wanted to try.
So I was trying to think of like ways that I could repurpose the fabric scraps, since those are the hardest materials to bring glass rather than bigger pieces, and like twisting it and then weaving it into a drink cooler.
ជំរាបសួរបាទខ្ញុំបានឈ្មោះខុនពីរំជា Supervisor ផ្នែកតុកាត់សម្រាប់ផ្នែកតុកាត់របស់ខ្ញុំនៅពេលដែលខ្ញុំចាប់ដើមនៅផ្នែកតុកាត់អាសិនគឺខ្ញុំនៅទទួលបាននៅពីកដាត់ពីខាងផ្នែកឃ្លាំងដើម្បីយកប្រកាសមុនដល់កាន់ខ្ញុំទៅយកប្រដាប់ហ្នឹងយកមកពលាបាទចំណាប់អារម្មណ៍របស់ខ្ញុំពាក់ព័ន្ធទៅនឹងកាកសំណល់យើងអាចកែច្នៃគឺជាសម្ភារៈផ្សេងៗទី1ទី2យើងអាចកាត់បន្ថយប្រព័ន្ធឋានមួយផ្នែកធំ
Hello everyone, we will start in 3 minutes, so please grab your seat, or if you want to bring some coffee or tea, you can just take it in, and we will start soon in 2 minutes.
ជួយសួរបាទខ្ញុំបានឈ្មោះខុនពីរំជាសុខ
All right, everyone, let's get started again. We do start with the group work, so you'll have a bit of time to continue talking to each other. We know this was a short coffee break, so the coffee break was only to keep you with fruit and food and coffee, but we will also give you the time to talk to each other a little bit more. You know the funniest thing? The most active table right now is the GIZ table. They're the ones still standing. All right, perfect. Thank you, everyone. Okay, next up we will have half an hour for group work where we prepared a couple of statements for you. I'll move this right back over here. But first of all, I hope you all had a refreshing break and are ready to move forward some of the conversations that you started during the break. We've had some inputs, and for example, the presentation from Mark that talked about 10 years of regional perspectives and 10 years of regional learning. And we've had that learning experience, obviously, both as a regional team, but also mainly in collaboration with our partners. Over that time, there was a couple of themes that came clear throughout that journey, and we would like to discuss some of you with you today, because yes, GIZ Fabric is ending, but neither the GIZ engagement in the sector is, nor the work in the industry. So we've invited 6 facilitators to moderate one short question. So in the room we have 6 boards. They are also numbered with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And each of the people will have one very short, poignant question to ask you, and then you guys have 60 minutes to walk around the room and to share your thoughts, your input, ask questions. We know half an hour is not a lot, so our suggestion would be you choose maybe 2 of the topics. Our kind of thing, if you want to stay at one of the discussion boards for half an hour, you can. If you want to do 15 minutes at one and 15 minutes at another, you can as well. Afterwards, the whole participants will sit back down, and then those who collected your points will feed back to the group, and we will share whether there's a lot of consensus on some of the topics or whether there's a lot of more discussion needed. Similar to what Peter took as an approach this morning, we also tried to make some of the statements maybe a little provocative, or maybe a bit on the nose, so if you disagree, do that as well. We have 6 people who will ask each of us a question. Once you've said that question, I would ask you to go to your board so people can sort of like visually follow where they would want to go if they join you. And the 6 people who will facilitate the conversations are Matthias, Kim, Christine, Stephen, Felicia, and Tom. So Matthias, could I ask you first for just the short statement?
Thank you, Lisa. Well, it's not that short, but I'll do my best. The statement is, how do manufacturers advocate for more sustainability regardless of policy trends? So what we mean by that, and what I would like to give you as a thought, and to convince you to come to that board and to discuss further with me, is the following. I think business can invoke policy as a supporting factor, but it should always be very careful not to rely fully on the policies. It should build the industry at once as much as possible also on economic logic. So policies often change and vary with political developments, but on the long run, if manufacturers don't transition to a more sustainable industry, it will literally not be sustainable. Buyers will look elsewhere, cost of pollution will rise, and out of control climate change will make it very difficult to have the right working conditions in factory. But then again, making costly changes based only on long-term planning is also very hard. On the short term, there's also plenty of economic reasons to invest in sustainability. But in order to see these, I think manufacturers have to take a step back and look at their operation in a broader context. How can they add more value to the products that they manufacture? What is the relation between supply chain efficiency and effectiveness and sustainability? I mean, one thing is reducing overproduction. It saves everybody money, and obviously it is one of the more effective ways to improve sustainability. So I think that is the key there, not to be totally reliant on the policies, to actually look also at the short-term returns on sustainability and how these can be shared with the manufacturer and the buyer. So that's what we are going to discuss over there.
Thank you. So Matthias, if you want, you can already head over to board number 1. So if you want to join for how do manufacturers advocate for more sustainability with uncertainty around policy trends, go find Matthias from the International Apparel Federation. Next, I would invite Kim to share her question.
Hi, I'm Kim from the Fashion Producer Collective, and the value of manufacturer inclusion for creating effective sustainability strategies and policies seems to be increasingly recognized. We've heard about it a number of times already today. And I think a number of actors and entities across the sustainability landscape are actively trying to engage more manufacturers in their work. So what I will be discussing over at number 2 is, are these efforts effective? What does meaningful manufacturer engagement require and look like? Thank you.
Thank you, Kim. So if you would want to, Kim, if you want, you can already head there so they can like physically know where to find you, because once people start getting up, it's going to be tough to spot people. So if you want to join Kim van der Weert as a co-founder of the Fashion Producer Collective for what does effective and meaningful manufacturer engagement look like, go find her at board number 2. And then next, my colleague Christine.
Hello. My statement is circularity more than just recycled materials, question mark. So on this board, we kept it open because circularity has been a broad topic and it has experienced a lot of attention over very recently, and we will believe that it will also stay an important topic for the next few years, for sure. So we will discuss our circular economy principles. We will emphasize on waste recycling, waste management, and also reuse, recycling, you name it. It depends on you, what you want to discuss and where our discussion leads us to.
This one. Thank you so much. So Christine from the GIZ Fabric team and IGS team will head over to the board for circularity, more than just recycled materials. And I already saw a couple of people pointing at that board, so I know they're going to be walking there. Next up, we have Stephen. Where are you? Over here.
Thanks, Lisa. My question, number 4. The board is over here near the door. That's not so you can escape, but it is near the door, just pointing that out. Is social moving slower than environmental improvements? And what we mean by that is, have efforts to improve environmental factors had greater success compared to efforts to improve social or workplace conditions? I think there are probably some people in the room like me who can remember the first codes of conduct. The first codes of conduct came out in the 1990s. Levi's was amongst the first in the early to mid 1990s, almost predominantly focused on social workplace. And I can remember being involved with the GSCP, the Global Social Compliance Program from the, they had a different name then, but the Consumer Goods Forum now. And they did a retail-wide code of conduct, and it was all workplace. The first iteration was all workplace, all social. And it wasn't until some other brands came on board that they started doing environment. And now we see a huge focus on environment. Sometimes, is social getting left behind? Is it easier to work on environment than it is on the workplace? So that's what we'll be discussing at number 4. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. So you can find Stephen over there for discussing whether social is moving slower than environmental improvements. Stephen, I think you're going to have an interesting discussion ahead of you, because I saw 6 people nodding and 5 shaking their heads. So, there is agreement or disagreement on that one. That's good. Very encouraging for a discussion. And then next is my colleague Felicia, who will ask her question at this board, number 5 over here.
Thank you, Lisa. We have heard about the role of governments, the role of manufacturers, the role of worker representations. What we have heard less about is the role of consumers. So this is what we will be talking about at board number 5 in this corner. Consumer awareness on sustainability, wishful thinking, or a driver in the market?
Thank you. So obviously consumer awareness is also one of the challenges, although I know many people in the room here work a lot with either manufacturers, worker representatives, government, etc. So to see how much push or pull is from the consumer side will be discussed at board number 5. And then last but not least, my colleague Tom.
Thank you very much, Lisa. So my topic is one that I find quite interesting myself. It will be advancements in technology in the textile sector. And the question we'll be asking directly is, where does automation and technology take us? So I want to understand some of the opportunities to be excited about. I want to understand some of the expected impacts. Is this going to be a cause of a loss of jobs? Is this going to cause new jobs to emerge in the textile sector? And also I want to ask the risks to be mitigated against. So indeed, will these innovations entrench existing power structures? So please join me at number 6 at the front if you'd be interested in this topic.
Thank you so much. So one last time, so you can write down your number. Number 1, we have how do manufacturers advocate for more sustainability with uncertainty around policy trends. Number 2, effective and meaningful manufacturer engagement. Number 3, circularity and more than just recycled materials. Number 4, if social is lagging behind in environment. Number 5, consumer awareness and automation and technology. You now have 30 minutes. Walk around the room, share your thoughts on each of those topics. We'll ring the bell 5 minutes before it's over so you can get the most important points in. And then those 6 will report back to us. Have a lovely break, and we do 30-minute group discussion.
passiert denn noch? Wo sind denn meine Karten? Wir haben aber ja jetzt warte mal, das sollte eine halbe Stunde sein. Dann hätten wir 11:50 angefangen, dann müssen wir jetzt praktisch... Wir haben um 12 dann angefangen. Ja, aber wo sind meine Karten? Ich brauche meine... Ja, das ist Mark, ne? Okay, aber das war ja mit Pause, Finish um 10:05 Uhr. Ja, ich versuche, wie weit es geht, zum Eisenplan zurückzukehren. Soll ich sonst noch eine andersfarbigen Stift holen? 11 Uhr, okay, dann machen wir um halb. Sagen wir, please finish your last part, then return to your seat und um 35 fange ich an. Und dann kannst du... Wieso bin ich denn erst um 11:45 Uhr dran? Das sind die Endzeiten. Ja, aber ich bin... Ja gut, ja okay, das macht Sinn. Also um 11:30 Uhr. Ja. Okay. Genau, um 11:30 Uhr und dann versuche ich weniger als 5 Minuten ihn zu gehen. Final? For the timetable, we're obviously behind schedule. And so I half past in 4 minutes. In 4 minutes, I will say your 2 more minutes. Finish your last part. And then 32, 33, I will ask them to sit back down. And then I will call the group leaders to share a couple points. And then we hope to do that as quick as possible. These are my last 2 minutes. So I go into 1 to 2. So I get you like a banana and this is all, the rest with the clicking and all the videos is okay, right? Yeah. I just help the hotel like well, I guess the 3 of us. This is logistics, this is hotel management, and we're moderating. Thank you. Take it as compliment, you know, I'm trying to now because I feel that I'm giving them their name wrong. No, honestly, it was good. Because of you, like, because you teach me. Yeah. No, but it was good. Yeah, because without you telling me, I will pronounce in a way that is with English, but German is different. Imagine me pronouncing names. But my name is easy one. Yeah. But whenever someone comes with a name tag, and I'm like, oh, did you find it? What's your name? And they're like, oh, how do you spell that? Are you doing well? No. Well, you do not have a... The problem with the speaker, but it's doesn't hear. Did you sleep? Did you just say that you slept? No, I didn't. You didn't? Not at all? You know, yeah, I think I did not sleep well last night. The thing is not about only the event, but I think it's like romantic. Because it's my thing. It's coming not today, but I think it's tomorrow. Yeah. I don't know, but the hairstyle effect now is starting to annoy me. Yeah. If you show me who they are, I will talk to them and they will have no chance of getting away. Tell me more about your daughter. No. What I thought you said your parents are coming to me. No. It's woman's thing. This is how there must be. It should be. But they understand because I don't want to
May I ask all of the groups to finish your last thoughts and then sit back down? Thank you. All right, everyone. If I could invite you guys to take a seat again, settle down, find your seat, and the facilitators stay at your boards, please. If I could ask everyone to sit back down. I love the fact that you all put the energy and the enthusiasm and the optimism from the performance in your work. But now I'll have to ask you to be enthusiastic at your table and in your seats.
Lisa, I think they are enjoy discussing now. They don't really hear your voice.
To each group individually, so yes, they know. I also noticed that they write down last thoughts, summarizing stuff, and I can see some movement. The circularity group is sitting down, perfect. Manufacturer engagement is sitting down, perfect. All right, everyone. If I could ask technology on automation to take a seat, consumer awareness, have a seat, please. Join us at the round tables. Stephen, I'm afraid you need to let your people go and ask them to sit down. As a moderator, you're in a bit of a tough spot. I'm like very happy about the fact that everyone's chatting along, and then on the other hand, I'm like, no, people are chatting along. Stephen?
Lisa?
Could I ask you to let your group go, please?
I wish we could have more time, but unfortunately, we don't have enough time now, and I love when people enjoy discussing. But yes, we need to be...
We will wrap it up now. First off, I would like the facilitators at each of the boards to just give us a short, it can be a summary, it can be one provoking thought, it can be a big discussion point. It doesn't have to be a conclusive overall summary of everything that was discussed in 30 minutes. But maybe we start with you, Matthias. For manufacturers advocate for more sustainability, what was maybe one surprising or one thing that everyone agreed on?
I can't give you one. I'll give a few. We started already with the word advocate. We thought adopt would be more suitable in here, because we don't really think manufacturers are in the position to advocate for more sustainability. Legislation can be a pain point because it's too fragmented, but we really were struggling with the idea that, well, let's say we think manufacturers do need the legislation. It helps them to protect their investments, the position of the leaders, and also, I think an interesting point, and that's where I will stop, is that local legislation could be strengthened and also enforced better, rather than leaving all the controls to the voluntary agreements that are in place. And the local enforcers could even learn from the auditors how that's doing. We did not find but we did not find many opportunities for manufacturers to find an economic rationale in the short term for investing in sustainability. So in that sense, we came back to legislation as a necessary factor.
Thank you so much. Maybe on the fact of the more room for opportunities or the manufacturer group, that's something that Kim can elaborate on in her group. Matthias, if you could just hand over that microphone. This room is quite big, and if I do a lot of walking, it's going to be quite long for the rest of you. So Kim, what were some of the things that you found in your group?
Well, I think one word that really sums up, we talked about manufacturer engagement in a lot of different ways. We talked about it in the commercial sense. We talked about it in the sort of broader in the sense of the broader sustainability landscape. And the word that came up again and again was partnership, but I want to define it because we talked about it in a very specific sense. I'm going to share a few words that came up. Some people talked about shared risk and reward in the financial sense. Some people talked about like co-creation. Some people talked about dialogue. Some people talked about having a vested interest in one another. But for me, if I had to take all of these words and sum them up, what I would say is really what we're talking about is codependence. When we talk about partnership, it's codependence. And I think the reality is that many manufacturers are kind of treated as if they are disposable in the commercial sense. And this also translates into how we engage them in sustainability. And so what we talked about is that actually, you know, with the starting point, whether you're talking about a very specific sustainability topic, like how to reduce your carbon emissions, or whether you're talking about commercial practices, that the starting point is always a shared understanding of the problem. And that many times manufacturers are not included in defining the problem. So then a request for engagement comes and the framing is too narrow. You're asked to give feedback on a very specific piece of a very specific thing, but you haven't been included in how the problem has been defined in the first place. So partnership was something that came up, and how that then shapes actually who has a voice in defining the problem, and then also kind of how the engagement that follows, what that looks like. The other thing we talked quite a lot about is, okay, if you have a shared understanding of the problem, and if you have been sort of partners in defining that problem, then what does the process for the engagement look like? And by that I mean, is the process transparent? So if you are going to a manufacturer and saying, I would like your time, your expertise, your insights on this thing, whatever the subject might be, has that process been transparently defined? Is it clear to me as a manufacturer, if you are taking my time, insights, and expertise, what you're going to do with that time and expertise? Because at the moment, I think it often feels quite extractive. And that is, and then the other part of process is, of course, equity. And equity is also within partnership as well, of course. But we talked about equity in the sense for, if you're going to come and ask manufacturers for their perspective on something, and for their insights and their time on something, what influence do they actually have over the decision making? Because what we have also seen, particularly in the Fashion Producer Collective, is at times well-intentioned entities will come and ask manufacturers for their time, insights, and expertise, and then they'll come out with some product report, whatever it might be, and they'll say, oh, but we engaged all of these manufacturers. And meanwhile, the manufacturers are sitting there thinking, yeah, but this doesn't resonate with me. And then you feel like you've been treated kind of as a rubber stamp. So those were kind of, there was a lot more. It's hard to summarize, but that's kind of what I would leave you with.
Thank you, Kim. I also, for those of you who don't know Kim very well yet, also she does also a lot of publication work on this, so if you have further questions on that, there's good materials with Kim. Some of the QR codes are also outside, where you can, if you pass on the microphone to someone over there, I do the one here. So if you have more questions on, how to develop that process to solve the criticism that Kim mentioned and be more inclusive and have bigger equity, go find Kim. She's also here tomorrow as well. On that note, let's move on to circularity. Your board looks very visual, so that's very well designed already. Maybe you can share a few points on that.
Thanks. This compliment for the visualization of the sport goes to Saskia. Yeah, it's not me. I was facilitating the discussion. Our question was circularity more than just recycled materials, and there was a clear yes in the group. So that was good. We had a consensus on that, and we also discussed the question. We are now speaking about value chains, right? And shouldn't we reframe it, and shouldn't we start talking about value circles, right? And then we said, okay, circles are much more challenging and complicated than in the beginning and the end, right? Now we have this linear mindsets where we take materials, we make something, and then we dispose it. But now we want to think in circles. So the question was, can we really try to build circular systems with a linear mindset? Are we even able to think that? Then we had the discussion from the circular design perspective, because we approached the topic from different perspectives, and one perspective was the circular design. And we clearly heard from the group that the brands they are starting tiny baby steps to approach circular designs, but we clearly said there is more knowledge missing, more capacity building needed, and also the clear willingness to create circular products and to consider longevity and recyclability already in the design stage. We also heard some innovative manufacturers who started to think about circular designs, and we clearly said there is a need for close collaboration between manufacturers and the brands on the circular design topic. Then we had the questions of the consumers. So are the consumers ready to wear recycled products, or are they saying, no, I don't want that, or the quality is not as good? And especially against the background that as of today, the price for recycled products is higher than, or the recycled yarn is higher than the virgin yarn. So then this also comes into play, the price. And of course, we were discussing that we should aim for textile to textile recycling and not starting the recycling of the, or not continuing the recycling of the PET bottles. So, and then there is another question of reframing, because as long as we consider it as waste, then it doesn't get the naming as it deserves, because waste is not waste until it's wasted. This was a nice idiom here. We wanted to call it resource because it has value. So this is a bit of the reframing we discussed. And then we talked about the textile waste management at the manufacturer level, and then also the textile waste handling, sorting, segregating at the recycler and waste handler level. And we closely came to the point that there is, of course, issues or challenges with working conditions, with occupational health and safety issues. So we also touched upon this. And last but not least, we also realized that there are also some linking messages, linking parts, for example, what is about the financial sector, what is about the government, where and who could also create incentives to foster the circularity. So that's it. Thanks to the group.
Thank you for sharing. This was also a good reminder for me again to, consider my wording when I speak about supply chains versus, value chain versus value circles. So also important to keep that in mind. Stephen, you wrote down less, but you were the ones most difficult to sit down. So I assume there was a lot of heated discussion.
Yes, I took a lot of notes and then I sort of condensed it on this. Our group completely ignored management directions to stop and sit down. I wish I'd recorded it. It was really fascinating. But someone said at the end, it's basically environment is easier and social is hard. And I think there are several things that came up in the discussion that back that up. Social is harder because of a business model and purchasing practices. So to deal with some of the key workplace issues that face us will require tackling something very fundamental. And along with political will in individual countries, the state, the government, the judiciary, the police force, etc., would be required to take particular actions to ensure that social conditions started to improve in some countries. And it would also require there to be worker agency, something that is resisted in a number of production countries. So I've simplified a lot of discussion there, but I hope I've done it some justice. Environment also is hard data. You can measure it. It can be measured easily. It can be measured by a small team or an individual. It can be done in a specific part of the factory, dealing with loss of energy through steam loss in pipes or whatever, right? But social tends to get measured upon impact, which is much harder to measure. Of course, we can measure impact, but it takes, it's a specialised field. It takes more time. Things are harder to measure. One of the first comments that was made was that social and environment are seen as separate, but are they really separate? And the issue of chemicals or heat, which is a health and safety issue, is also an environmental issue. So these things have impact on workers. I mean, heat has come onto the agenda, in a rush with a couple of very nice reports in the last couple of months. really bringing this to our attention. So environment tends to be a technical issue. It's perceived as modern, clean, green. It's part of a global conversation on the urgency for climate change, deal with climate change and climate issues. So it's on the news, it's in the social media, people are protesting about it. But the social is more complicated. It deals with culture, it deals with people. As several of the participants noticed, you can't take something that works in Thailand or Bangladesh and transfer it to Cambodia or China. This doesn't work. And in countries like China, Pakistan, India, you can't even take what works in the southern part and put it, in the north. Just to simplify things grossly, but even at that level, it doesn't work. So there was a lot more in our conversation, but I'll just stop here because I think these are the main things. Thanks, Lisa.
Thank you, Stephen. Stephen moderated a couple of our webinars over time, so this is very well practiced, the back and forth and the short summaries in the end. Felicia, you were working on consumer awareness with quite a provocative question, whether it's a driver or wishful thinking. What did you come up with?
Well, it was a provocative question, but there was very much consensus on one of the answers, at least, that consumers care about style, price, and to some extent quality, but that there's a behavioral gap and less of a willingness to go for sustainable products, sometimes even if they are at the same price or at a very similar price. So we discussed the lack of knowledge of consumers and ideas for how to tackle that. Some of them relate to product storytelling, more emotional. We also discussed that manufacturers can play a role in that to support brands in giving them information and also maybe visuals or videos that can be used at the point of sale to encourage consumers. However, all of these are niche ideas that work for a specific type of consumer and are currently not mainstreamed. And the question is, how do we get to a more impactful and more mainstreamed approach on that? One of the answers that was discussed a little bit is a brand ID, so a brand that in its DNA has already a sustainability built into it and that consumers trust and then go for such products instead of maybe labeling or individual products showcased. I'll leave it at that because we are at time. But thank you very much for the discussion.
Thank you. And if you want to add more points to that, both Felicia and also Tina, who's the one next to sitting, Chantutea in the red jacket with the short blonde hair, are very happy to have further conversations with you on that. Tom, I would hand over to you for advancements in technology.
Okay, thank you very much. So we asked the question, where does automation and technology take us? And what we came up with was this is taking us in, there's many things to be excited about in this regard. Internet of Things and more efficient database analysis means that there will probably be an increase in productivity. There's the ability to upskill workers to the highest standard of so the highest standard worker in your factory, there'll be the ability to get all workers to that standard. Another example was health monitoring for production line management. You'll be able to see how these are impacting your workforce and plan accordingly. However, there was many impacts as well. Those impacts were described as being slower to be realized than expected. So not as disruptive as expected, at least to begin with. There will be fewer jobs in standardized processes. There was expected to be an increase in unemployment in the GFT sector, but also an increase for skilled workers who are already familiar with some of these new technologies such as IoT and AI. So there'll be a demand for new but more specialized roles. Some of the risks to be mitigated against that were brought up were in a sector that is reliant on particularly women workers and a large workforce. Is there the risk that their voices will be muted and instead be analyzed by artificial intelligence systems rather than a human voice? And it's very important that these new technologies will be applied to the right things so that efficiency gains are made in technologies such as renewable energy and waste mitigation instead of coal, for example. Overall, to summarize, I asked the group, do you think these technologies will be a net good? And I asked it in two ways. Will it be a net good for productivity? Everyone put up their hand and said yes. Will it be a net good for workers? Nobody put their hand up. And so the conclusion was, maybe all in the room, we should start thinking about how development programming can start supporting this trend that we all see coming in the next 5 to 10 years. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Tom, Matthias, Kim, Christine, Stephen, and Felicia. Please have a seat again, and thank you so much for facilitating that conversation.
Wow, that was a very fruitful discussion, and I think we have a lot of more things to show. And yes, of course, what we did so far for 10 years of regional perspective, we took some time today to look back, and what we do now is to look ahead. However, as both Mark and Peter show us, there is much more to do. So for the next agenda item, I'd like to invite you to join us for the look ahead. So without further ado, I'd like to invite Mark to guide us through on the road ahead. Please welcome.
Yes, thank you very much. So we want to look ahead together because we think that some of the achievements that Fabric has worked on together with partners are, of course, relevant to the sustainability agenda of the sector. Key flagship initiatives from Fabric Asia have contributed to this agenda, and they are now entering a new phase. So we have made it a priority of our work in the last phase of Fabric to ensure the sustainability of our interventions and to find agreements with partners to continue the work even after Fabric phases out. What started, for example, as an inter-Asian network of producer associations has gained momentum, and now, with the upcoming signing of the MOU between AFTEX and STAR is set to play a bigger role in fostering regional cooperation on sustainability and competitiveness. STAR has set up its own secretariat, fully funded by members. It will work closely with IAF to make sure the voices of producers are heard in the global discussion about the future of the industry. The Sustainable Terms of Trade initiative has sparked crucial discussions on responsible purchasing practices. STTI was started by IAF and STAR associations, united in their common goal. IAF, who has been a partner from the beginning, is fully funded to support the secretariat for the next 3 years, ensuring that this dynamic initiative continues beyond 25. The Fashion Producer Collective has highlighted the importance of collective producer voices in shaping fairer and more sustainable industry practices. Its members are taking ownership, focusing on sustainability initiatives in the fashion sector, with participating producers bringing diverse perspectives and further developing a think tank in collaboration with suppliers. Looking ahead, the Asia Garment Hub, a vital knowledge-sharing platform for the industry, will find a new home under common objective, a leading business network for the fashion industry, ensuring it remains a central resource for all stakeholders. So each of these initiatives, and this is why we want to give them a stage here, reflects a shift from our short-term project horizon to the perspective of long-term industry transformation. Ownership and responsibility are now embedded in the sector itself. So as you see, Fabric will end. Although Fabric will end, this is not the end of the journey. It's a milestone in an ongoing process of transformation. So let's ensure that the next 10 years build on what we've learned and contribute to a more sustainable and fair industry for all. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Mark, for the very insightful speech on the road ahead. So as part of our session looking ahead together, I also like to welcome 4 initiatives on stage. So we will start with Tom and Vic from STAR, and Albert, the chairman of APTEC, and will be followed by Lisa and Mathai from STTI, Kim and Sakwip from Fashion Producer Collective, and Mark and Thompson from Asia Garment Hub and Common Objective. So now, let me hand over to Tom and Vic first.
Okay, thank you very much, Sanel. Could we start the slide? Okay, so Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Thomas Hesketh, head of the STAR Secretariat, and it's my pleasure to briefly introduce the network to you today. So, established in 2016 with the support of GIZ, STAR, Sustainable Textiles of the Asian Region, is a platform designed to promote dialogue, to build trust, and collectively address the challenges faced by the textile industry. From humble beginnings, STAR has achieved significant milestones. Our network now brings together 9 leading garment producer associations from Bangladesh, Cambodia, China, Pakistan, Vietnam, and Myanmar. This represents, if you add them together, nearly 36,000 manufacturers, over 30 million workers, and around 49 to 51% of global garment exports. So these are huge numbers, and what this means is that when the STAR network speaks, it does have weight behind it. Change slide, please. Our major accomplishments so far include publishing position papers addressing critical topics such as audit fatigue, sustainable terms of trade, and improving renewable energy policies. This is already substantial given the diverse views and voices represented by our members. But perhaps our most significant achievement, achieved this Monday actually, is the establishment of an independent, member-owned and member-funded regional secretariat with a strategy and roadmap towards long-term sustainability. This independence is underscored by strong governance structures, a secretariat location in Taftak, mutual trust amongst members, and robust MOUs with partners such as Syntac and Aftex. So, like the skyscrapers under construction in Cambodia, the STAR network has extremely strong foundations and is now ready to grow. As we celebrate 10 years of Fabric, and in the final months of the Fabric project, I'm very proud to begin handing over the STAR torch to this member-led structure. And so aligned with that aim, I'm delighted to introduce our new, fully member-funded network manager, Saron Sovacia.
Well, thank you, Tom, for your kind introduction. You know, as the new guy, I get a lot of introduction in the past few weeks. But ladies and gentlemen, I'm Vic, and as the new manager of the STAR Network, I look towards our future with optimism and with ambition. Building upon a decade of prior work, the STAR Network, now as an independent secretariat based in Cambodia's Tap-Tak, and now with an expanded regional presence in Human, China through our STAR Liaison Office, we will continue our mission as the leading voice of manufacturers through our dialogue-building efforts, advocacy, and thought leadership through our STAR knowledge product, like our quarterly reports, our roundups, and the STAR position papers, the latest one of which we just released earlier this week, and they will be followed by many more as the industry develops. Now, looking forward, as STAR looks to shape our future activities, we also look outwards to potential funding, grants, partnerships, opportunities. These partnerships will involve close collaborations with our colleagues over at the DSTTI, the IAF, and perhaps especially with Aptex, which I'm especially excited to announce we'll be signing an MOU with in just a few moments. This MOU looks to strengthen the sustainability in our supply chains, addressing the crucial issue of audit fatigue and promoting equitable trade terms through enhanced knowledge sharing, regional collaboration/dialogue. The further details of which we're especially excited to have Mr. Albert Tan of Aptex to share more with us in just a moment. And ladies and gentlemen, truly I could go on, but they really only gave me 1 minute for this. And this is just the beginning. This is progress. Progress driven forward by the unity and the commitment of our members. And as a visual representation of that unity and that commitment, I invite you to watch this short clip, because this is STAR. Thank you.
Thank you. Wow, that was amazing video. That's how STAR come together. So now I'd like to invite Albert Tan, Chairman of AFTEC, to come on stage. Please welcome.
Good morning, everyone. Special thanks to Mark Beckman from GIZ Fabric and AFTEC's delegates and staff members, guests, and esteemed guests. It is my great pleasure to be here today to introduce you to AFTEC, as to witness the important milestone, the signing of Memorandum of Understanding between AFTEC and the STAR Network. For those who have not heard of AFTEC before, the ASEAN Federation of Textile Industry, or AFTEC, was founded in 1978 and represents the Textile and Garment Association of 9 ASEAN countries. Our mission is to strengthen regional cooperation, promote global competitiveness, and create a unified voice for the ASEAN textile industry. Today, ASEAN stands as one of the world's largest economic blocs, and our industry countries to be a major drive of growth, innovation, and employment. At present, Cambodia, through TAFTEX, hold the AFTEC chairmanship. It has been our great honor to hold the chairmanship for the past 2 years. As the chairmanship transitioned to Indonesia following this meeting, we reaffirm our commitment of strengthening partnership across the region. MOU marks an important step for expanding AFTEC's collaboration beyond ASEAN, bringing key players from Bangladesh, Pakistan, China, through the STAR Network. By working together, we are not just strengthening regional ties, we are ensuring the voices of our manufacturers are heard on the global stage. The power and dynamic between brands and manufacturers remain in balance. An initiative like this allows us to collectively advocate for fairer, more sustainable trade practice. Already, this partnership has yielded success. In June 2024. AFTEC and STARS co-hosted an inaugurated Trade and Sustainability Summit, bringing together industry leaders to tackle shared challenges. Through this MOU, we commit to deepen collaboration on crucial issues such as reducing audit fatigue, promoting sustainable terms of trade, and advocating the better policies, including those supporting renewable energy adoption like rooftop solar. I would like to say a thank you to GIZ Fabric for starting and nurturing STARS for the last 10 years. And this is an initiative started by GIZ, who look at Asia in a different perspective view. And they also understand that what we are all facing in Asia, and I'm glad and hope that more will join, more countries in Asia will join STARS, at the same time the association. And that will build and foster more competitiveness and also a louder voice in the global stage. I'm optimistic about the future of this partnership. AFTEC and STARS share a vision of a competitive, sustainable, resilient garment sector. By working together, we are not just strengthening our individual industry, but shaping a better future for our garment-producing nation, including textiles and fabrics and arts. Thank you.
Thank you, Albert. I would like you to remain on stage. So next, I would like to invite AFTEC and STAR representative to join us on stage for the MOU signing and photos. So we will have hotel team to prepare the table for the MOU signing. Yes. Yes, thank you. I guess there will be a beautiful photo and then we will share with you after the conference next week maybe. So let me give 1 minute for the team to remove the table and set up the podium again. So next, I'd like to invite the second active of STTI to join us on stage. Please welcome Lisa and Matthias.
STTI, Sustainable Terms of Trade Initiative.
Hello, everyone. I was emceeing until now and will step into my role as STTI lead together with Matthias. It's different to be on this level of the stage compared to the walking around one. But you've already heard a fair bit about the Sustainable Terms of Trade Initiative as it was kickstarted by the STAR network and when IEF came together during the pandemic. During the pandemic, I wouldn't say that purchasing practices were sort of much poorer than normal. They obviously just the circumstances made them much more obvious, and struggles and structural problems that were there for the whole time just became very visible and were highlighted because it obviously affected the sector as a whole and not just individual people. In order to address that, the manufacturers within the IAF and within the STAR network came together to put forward one voice and saying, yes, the current purchasing practices don't work for the sector, but what do we do instead? And as a result, they developed the white paper on responsible purchasing practices. This group was very unique because it was one of the few times where big manufacturing groups came together to put forward one statement. The initiative is manufacturer-driven, and as you know, in many of the multi-stakeholder initiatives, for example, the manufacturer voices are not necessarily at an equal part in the conversations. In the video that just played when we walked on stage, you can see that there is many associations who have joined STTI, many of which are here today.
And I think if we take a look from the starting point of the white paper and what responsible purchasing practices are supposed to be and what we are hoping they will be, we've come a long way. And I would invite Matthias to share a bit on the achievements of the last few years.
Next slide. Yeah. Well, thanks, Lisa, and it's always nice when we talk so much about collaboration to be presenting on behalf of the product of one of those collaborations, the IF and STAR. I'll be brief. Lunch is starting soon, but these are the work streams that we have been working on. We met yesterday to brainstorm and talk about the new work streams. It's a manufacturer association-driven initiative. So this was the product also of that brainstorming. If you look at the second one, I'm not going to go over all of them, but multi-stakeholder engagement, there has been a very strong collaboration again with the MSI group, having formed the framework for the common framework for responsible purchasing practices, which has led to the inclusion of the STTI white paper. So basically what purchasing practices manufacturers would like to see and which ones they don't ever want to see again, the inclusion of that in the broader, let's say, translation to brands, the brands that are working with these multi-stakeholder initiatives such as Fair Wear, ETI, and further on also Cascale, into the way they assess the purchasing practices of these brands. So this has been more or less a work behind the scenes, but that has been very productive, I think, in advancing the manufacturer's view on purchasing practices. We have also tried to make things small and worked with pilot projects, especially on the contracting issue. And there was the work with the Responsible Contracting Project on responsible contracts and translating that together with manufacturers into practice with a few brands who were, for instance, building two-way codes of conduct or checking how those two-way code of conduct could be further developed into a more responsible contract. Incorporating, again, whatever we wrote down in the STTI white paper. And finally, one that I want to highlight, which was again a collaboration also with the MSI group, with support of GIZ, the learning and implementation communities, where there was joint learning. So brands and manufacturers, and the manufacturers all came from the STTI group, talking about several key issues of responsible purchasing practices and discussing how in practice, in the relationship between the brand and the supplier, these could be improved. Really working through how this difficult topic works in practice. Many of these things we are going to continue in the continuation of STTI in a difficult, but I think steady work on improving purchasing practices. Now, having said this, it's time to introduce another initiative. Here, the Fashion Producer Collective, so I'd like to call to the stage Kim van der Weert and Saqib Sohail.
Hello, and thank you for having us here today. My name is Kim, and this is my co-conspirator, Saqib. Let me make this a little lower. So I am one of, hopefully, soon to be several co-founders of the Fashion Producer Collective, and Saqib here is here with me as a someone who has been co-creating and very involved in steering the Fashion Producer Collective to this point, but there are a few other colleagues with me here today. And his day job is as the responsible business lead for Artistic Milliners, which is a mill in Pakistan. So what is the Fashion Producer Collective? This is also what we've been trying to figure out the last couple of months. The short version is a producer-led sustainability think tank. The slightly longer version is a producer-led think tank dedicated to transforming business models for a more sustainable future. And effectively what we are is an infrastructure for thought leadership from the supply chain, so by producers. And I want to emphasize this word thought leadership because what we are doing, as opposed to some of the initiatives that you've heard about just before me, is we are not for the associations, we are for individual companies, and we are really focused on thought leadership as it relates to sustainability. So what do manufacturers, how do manufacturers think that sustainability should be done, as opposed to, say, joint positions, which are also very important and complementary, but slightly different to what we are doing. And what I would also say is we are focused on individual companies and specifically on the individuals within those manufacturing companies who are leading sustainability. And with that, I'm going to hand over to Saqib, who's going to tell you a little bit more.
So I'm not going to start this with we have a dream, but we do have a dream. We envision a world, we imagine a world where producers, suppliers lead the co-creation of sustainable projects. And we have an influence in which we are able to inspire, but not compel. So it's an inward-outward thing. We are doing that anyways, but we would like to involve the suppliers in a way where we lead the sustainability projects because we are the ones implementing till now. We are the ones which are just taking the dictate, but we want to be co-creators and collaborators in that. So this is our mission and vision. And how do we do that? In the next slide, yeah. So we want to do that by including, first of all the suppliers. They need to decide what they want to do, not being imposed what they want to do. So have the power to decide to be part of any initiative, any project, any policy paper they want to be part of, and green light that. And have that empowerment that we have an influence over co-creating any sustainability project or any other project. But I think for us, I'm not going to read the slide, but the most important part is the fourth one, the fourth point on the slide for me. Because most of the time you'll see we are engaged in being like sounding off on different projects, thinking about providing feedback. The value of our time and knowledge most of the time goes in vain, right? So with Fashion Producer Collective, we are creating a model, which Kim will explain a little bit, in which individuals from organizations who provide their time and effort towards sustainability projects, policies, white papers, will be rewarded for that. So it's a win-win situation for the suppliers. They feel they are giving their time, but they're getting something back from it. And also, remember, we cannot emphasize enough, it's all about co-creation. To inspire, not to compel, to inspire and influence for a better, positive, sustainable business solution. And Kim here, now you can go ahead and tell us what we aspire to do in the coming year.
Thank you, Saqib. Yes, so these are just some of the key principles and ways of operating, and I'm going to share with you now how that translates into actual practice. So when we say, oh, let me go back a second. Yeah, so when we say, how do manufacturers get to decide which initiatives get put on the table and which ones get the green light, what does that mean? When we say time is valued, the time that manufacturers give is valued and netted off against cash contributions, what does that mean? When we say manufacturers decide what they're going to participate in, what does that mean? So let me go to the next slide. Thank you. So I want to turn so I can see. So basically, what we have here, on the left-hand side, we have what we do and then how we do it. So what do? We connect manufacturers, individual manufacturing companies, to each other. That's the first thing. And we do that primarily in the first instance. I'm going to go over here to the how we do it, through the meetup circles. And this is an initiative that's been supported by GIZ. This is where it all started. And the meetup circles are a space where manufacturers, especially sustainability professionals working within manufacturing, can come together to build more trusted relationships. They can get to know each other. And in that process, they have ideas, so they ideate solutions. That's the next circle you see here. We ideate solutions, and actually this has already happened in the last few years. We've been getting together as a group of through these supplier meetups, and then we had ideas for things that we wanted to do. And that then led to co-creation. So for example, in the last few years, we have run a number of projects. One of them was already briefly mentioned this morning, but there were a number of manufacturers who said, you know what, I really need a guide to preparing for the evolving legislative landscape. So we had a number of manufacturers, along with other partners, including GIZ Fabric, who came together and said, let's create the guide we wish we had. So we connect, we ideate solutions, we co-create solutions, and then we implement them. And I'm going to continue with the example of the legislative guide, because we had one manufacturer who was participating in that project said to me recently, you know what, this guide was great, but I'm really struggling to implement my own recommendations. So I would really benefit from a community of practice where I could connect with my peers in the manufacturing world to figure out what they're doing and how I could learn from them to prepare for legislation. And then the last thing you see here is advocate. Advocate for solutions within the broader ecosystem. So everything we've talked about so far is about connecting manufacturers to each other, manufacturers coming together to co-create, to ideate. But we also want to advocate within the broader ecosystem. So, and how can we talk within the broader ecosystem as companies engaged in sustainability with a sort of more common voice? And so how it works is, as I mentioned before, we have the meetups, so that's kind of where it all starts. Then we have projects. So projects are where manufacturers come together to work with peers to achieve a specific objective or outcome. Then we have hubs, and hubs are really where the advocacy takes place. So the hubs are to engage in unified outreach and advocacy with external entities, which could be MSIs, brands, or other stakeholders. And for example, in the last year, we have already set up one hub, which brings together the manufacturer members of Cascale to engage, to facilitate behind the scenes, to get them to engage with Cascale with a unified and single voice. Then we have communities of practice, which, as I mentioned, is really around implementation. And then, yes, the meetups I mentioned. So the members of this think tank, who are manufacturers, individual companies, choose which of these types of initiatives they want to participate in and what they want to opt into. Resources are only pooled when manufacturers actually want to collaborate on something, and all the circles are autonomous. So whether that's a meetup, a community of practice, a project, a hub, they are autonomous and they have a life cycle. They start, they do stuff, and they end. And then that's supported by a very lean HQ, which basically offers standard support services that helps when manufacturers want to do any of these things, helps them get started, get off the ground, maybe supports them to connect with each other, and also then helps them launch with confidence. So in a nutshell, that is the Fashion Producer Collective, and I will leave it there. And I'm going to hand over to Mark Beckman of GIZ Fabric, of course, and Tamsin from Common Objective.
Okay, today starts a new era for the Asia Garment Hub. It marks the official merger of the Asia Garment Hub platform with Common Objective. This is more than just a shift in the platform, but it is an opportunity for a scale-up commitment to collaboration and knowledge sharing. Since its inception, the Asia Garment Hub has been a key learning and knowledge-sharing platform for development organizations, manufacturers, brands, policymakers, and experts to come together in the interest of sustainability and decent work of Asia's garment and textile sector. And under Common Objective, it will continue to evolve, tapping into the power of a global network, scaling its impact, and making sure industry stakeholders have the right tools, resources, and collaborations necessary for the next chapter. So this is not just continuity, but a growth opportunity, toward innovation and a sustainable industry. With common objective, I'm confident that the hub will flourish, and I'm looking forward to seeing what we will achieve in this next phase. And with this, I would like to hand over to Tamsin, the CEO of Common Objective, to share a few words.
I'm delighted to be here because my
Asia Garment Hub and Common Objective.
Really delighted to be here because my journey in sustainable fashion began 25 years ago here in Phnom Penh, where I was working in the Basak shantytown, which once existed just a stone's throw from this hotel, and it existed because of the garment industry, with residents coming in from rural areas to work in garment factories, producing for big brands like Nike and Gap, but not paid enough to afford formal accommodation. So they lived in a shantytown. 3 months after I left, the entire shantytown was bulldozed flat, leaving residents homeless. And that experience is what prompted me to found the Ethical Fashion Forum in 2004, which was one of the first organizations to bring together and unite suppliers, brands, and organizations in common goals towards a better and more sustainable and ethical fashion industry. And we created, the Ethical Fashion Forum created the Common Objective platform to harness technology towards that goal. We share the Asia Garment Hub mission of a just and sustainable garment sector globally, and collaboration really matters now more than ever. The fashion sector is unique in that there are over 50 initiatives working together towards better practices. And yet, despite all this work and commitment, over the last 20 years, we've seen the environmental impact of the sector as a whole escalate, and the pace on social change is far too slow. We believe that through working more effectively together, we can achieve a lot more impact. And that's why partnership is so important. So Common Objective has grown to a community of practice of over 65,000 members, representing 28,000 companies, all committed to more sustainable and ethical practices. We also know that we can increase engagement and impact through co-tech. So if we could go back one slide. We've created the technology behind Co essentially to support collaboration, and there are 4 key ways that we do this. This is some of these that we're going to be able to implement in order to further the impact and reach of the Asia Garment Hub, increase engagement with the resources on it, and increase opportunities for supplier networks within it. So the first is personalized dashboards. Anybody can join Common Objective. There's no barriers to entry. It's free to join. But you have a personalized, curated experience so that you get straight, or any of the members within your networks get straight to what you need. There's lots of information out there. Some recent research into initiative in the sector find that 98% all produce resources. What matters really, though, with change is not the production of content or resources or training, it's the engagement with it and the change that happens as a result. So dashboards allow everybody to have a unique experience. Ranked business profiles, so any business can create a business profile on the site very quickly and easily and intuitively, and have a presence to this global community. What excites us is that there's a sustainability ranking behind this. So if you're a supplier, the more sustainable your operations, the higher your search ranking, the more views and customers you will gain. Our goal is to turn sustainability from a cost to an opportunity to create real commercial incentives for better practices. Circles, so we have a circle capability, and for any of you who are attending today, please do join. We've just launched an Asia Garment Hub Circle, which allows any of you to connect with others and continue the conversations that we've started today. We can create circles. It's an online forum capability, just a piece of tech, but it's there to support what's happening already. We can work with any organization that is looking to bring together peer groups. You get access to that circle. You can communicate in the click of a button to all of them very easily. And finally, training credits. I mentioned lots of content out there. What really matters is how much it's engaged with. So having a piece of training is great, but what matters is how many complete that training and take action as a result. So that's what training credits are about. Any organization can upload training to the platform, and then once a user completes that training, they get a credit. That shows on their individual profile. It also shows on any business which they're associated with and increases the ranking of that business. So building it to try to create a tangible commercial incentive for better practices across the sector. If we could go to the next slide. So the makeup of the co-network is led by leaders, lots of directors and decision makers. And next slide. And they're committed to sustainability. So we share a common objective, a fashion industry that works better for everyone and the planet. And if anyone here is interested in collaborating towards that goal, I'd love to talk to you. CoTech is designed for collaboration. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I would like to quickly thank both Kim and Saqib, Mark and Tamzin, Matthias, Tom and Vic, and everyone who just presented the initiatives and how they are moving forward. We will now move to the closing remarks. No, I'm just kidding. We're not going to do closing remarks. We figured we end on a high note and we end on a video. Our team has been working on one very short video that shows what the fabric work has been doing. So we will end on the video, and then afterwards we would invite all of you for one group photo on the stage if you want to. If you want to take individual photos, there's the backdrop in the lobby. You can, for your initiatives, groups, take some photos there as well. And if you stick around for after the video, I'll quickly tell you what's the fastest way to get to lunch, but they've already prepared, set up, and you can head there next. So if I could ask our team to start playing the fabric video, thank you.
It is a great pleasure to working with the GIZ initiative Fabric Asia. It was a very incredible journey for the last 10 years. So we have seen firsthand how the initiative has transformed the textile and the garments industry, promoting fairness, environmental sustainability, and the collaboration across the region. Without Fabric Asia, initiative like the STAR Network or Sustainable Terms of Trade Initiative STTI is difficult to exist. By joining force, we can advocate more strongly for better purchasing practice in the international textile and garments industries and better demand commercial compliances that allows manufacturers to run socially, environmentally, and economically sustainable operations.
Over the past decade, Fabric Asia has reached thousands of workers, trained industry leaders, reduced environmental impact, and empowered communities. We have seen over 200,000 workers receive training and information on their rights. We established the first inter-Asian network of producer associations, the STAR Network, with the export volume of $400 billion. Together with STAR Network and partners, we led the Sustainable Terms of Trade Initiative, STTI, a unique global manufacturer-driven initiative focused on creating fairer purchasing practices in the textile and garment industry. We created a one-of-a-kind digital one-stop shop tailored to the garment and textile sector in Asia, the Asia Garment Hub, through a joint initiative with the ILO's Decent Work in Garment Supply Chains Asia project. We designed a self-paced online climate action training course specifically for factory management in the textile and garment industry. With over 20,000 graduates, we organised the Asian Dialogues Conference on Sustainable Production in the textile and garment industry, with more than 3,000 participants across 6 countries in Asia. We supported the Fashion Producer Collective, a producer-led sustainability think tank who implement producer-led projects related to sustainability in the fashion sector. Through regional knowledge sharing, practical solutions have been replicated on the country level. drawing from the experience with a similar app developed in Myanmar by Fabric Asia, the app Seth Yearn Our Rights was created for the Cambodian context, educating over 31,000 workers on local labour law and occupational health and safety. The success of a similar model, supported by Fabric Asia and implemented in Bangladesh and integrated into trade union structures in Myanmar, led to the establishment of the We House in Cambodia, benefiting over 10,000 women garment workers.
ខ្ញុំបានចូលរួមនៅផ្ទះយើងបានសិក្សាអំពីច្បាប់ស្តីអំពីការងារ gender សុខភាពនិងការគ្រប់គ្រងហិរញ្ញវត្ថុ
ខ្ញុំទទួលបានការប្រឹក្សាផ្លូវចិត្តនិងផ្លូវច្បាប់បន្ថែមទាំងនោះទៀតខ្ញុំបានស្គាល់បងមកពីរោងចក្រផ្សេងក៏បានជជែកគ្នាដើម្បីនិយាយផ្លាស់ប្ដូរបទពិសោធន៍គ្នាទៅវិញទៅមកអរគុណដល់ We House ដែលផ្ដល់ចំណេះដឹងនិងជំនាញថ្មីៗដល់ខ្ញុំអរគុណដល់ We House ដែលផ្ដល់កន្លែងមានសុវត្ថិភាពដល់ខ្ញុំនិងធ្វើឲ្យខ្ញុំមានទំនុកចិត្តនិងមានភាពជឿជាក់ក្លាហានជាងមុន
None of these achievements would have been possible without the amazing collaboration and support from all our partners and stakeholders.
The textile and garment sector is of course still confronted with a number of huge challenges, but it is also full of deeply committed organizations and individuals that drive change. And on behalf of the whole Fabric team, I can say that we are very grateful to have worked with so many of these partners over the years. It is thanks to these partners that the impact that our Fabric team has worked on over the years on behalf of the German Ministry for Economic Cooperation and Development will continue to evolve. The core of our mandate is to foster regional collaboration, knowledge sharing, and to help producers raising their voices. It is very important that we all continue this effort, providing opportunities for stakeholders in the region.
I hope you enjoyed the video before we heading to lunch. So now, instead of closing our recap of today's agenda, I would like to leave everyone with this video and thank to all our partners for the last 10 years, including our wonderful speaker today and our Fabric team as well.
All right, now we come to the much anticipated group photo and lunch information. All right, first things first, if you have a look in your name tag, in the back of your name tag, you have the vouchers for lunch. If you stay for multiple days, you also have lunch for tomorrow. It's a little incentive to keep your name tags going. So lunch will be on the first floor of the hotel. For those of you staying here, it's the same room as the breakfast room. We're currently on the first floor, so you just walk out of the ballroom and into the restaurant for lunch. Before you head there, we would like to take one group photo in the front if you would like to join us, and then if you leave your bags at the tables, we can do the photo and then everyone can head to lunch right after. In case you are missing a lunch voucher, lost your name tag, etc., our team is outside at the registration desk to solve those issues. Otherwise, I would invite all of you to join us on stage, in front of stage, leave your bags and come join us for one photo at the end of this half-day event. We asked people also to get on stage. Don't worry about the backdrop. We do 2 lines, otherwise that's never going to fit on the photo. Perfect. I see the first people moving to the second row as well. That looks great. Okay. 3, 2, 1. Freestyle, whatever you want. Thank you. The bus for the factory visit leaves at 1:30 from the lobby. Lunch is on the first floor. I'm here for any questions.